News Talk 94.5 WPTI. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you to retire that job and keep the paycheck. And of course, today with me is Mr. Brice Payne, working the board. Good morning, Brice.
Good morning, Doug. You know, I missed you last week, and you're back from a work event, and somehow you look tanner during that. I don't know how that happens. Tell us a little bit about your
when
trip.
The work event is combined with a little vacation in Aruba, that's how that happens.
Is that how that happens?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You didn't tell us that when you were leaving. That's
right.
where you were going.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to D.C. or something. Okay. So how was it?
Aruba was great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You've been there before?
No, first time.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's a neat little place. It's not a big island, and it's right. I mean, you could swim to Venezuela. It's that close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
No, I didn't.
Didn't want to say hi to Chavez?
No. No, I didn't.
All right. Well, very good. Welcome back. And, we got to do our Wealth Guardian service salute here. So let's go ahead and do that
Yes,
first.
let's do.
As we do every week, we take a moment and acknowledge and thank and keep in mind those of you out there who are listening and your families, those who put on the uniform for the Stars and Stripes. Doug, thank you for your service. Garrett, thank you for your service. And everyone else out there, thank you for your service. We are well aware that it is not always an easy calling, and there are sacrifices that are made on your behalf and on your family's behalf. And we want to thank you for that, and particularly as we get close to Memorial Day here. So you're in our thoughts and prayers all the time, and that's what makes America great. Right, Doug?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again to everyone out there. And while you were in Aruba, my wife and I were getting a hot tub installed.
Oh, cool.
At the house.
Yeah.
And it did not take her long to play a prank on me.
Uh-oh.
And she was working call the other night, and she knew that I was going to be in the hot tub. So she bought this 3-inch rubber slug and put it in the hot tub. And so I was in there the night that she was off, just relaxing, listening to some music in there. And I open up my eyes, and sure enough, comes floating along is this 3-inch black slug coming right across my stomach. And I freaked out till it took me about 15 seconds to realize it was fake. And I texted her right away. Yep, you got me. Good job.
That's super. You know, even though it was vacation, part of it was business.
I know it was.
And I've got some important information from that business meeting to tell our listeners about. But so stay tuned to the segment here, and we'll talk about. So it revolves around interest rates and what they're doing right now.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of updates that you need to be giving us on that. So our topic today, both in the first and second segment, is retirement planning next steps. So, Doug, as you're aware, it's not just the financially uncertain who need to think carefully about their retirement plan, but even those who feel confident in their retirement savings might still have important questions to answer and decisions to make. So in this episode, we're going to explore the 3 retirement planning mindsets. Those who have no idea if they can retire, those who think they have enough money to retire, and those who know for sure they have enough money to retire. We're going to discuss the key considerations and the next steps for each of these mindsets to help you prepare for a fulfilling retirement. So, Doug, let's get started on this first one. I like this segment here, and we're talking about people who come to us, they sit down, they're getting close to retirement. Maybe they've done a good job savings, but they're not sure, and they really have no idea if they can hang it up tomorrow or if they've got to work 10 more years. They're just not financially minded like that.
Yeah, you know, we see all 3 of these.
Yes, we do.
On pretty much a regular basis. I would say the first 2 we see more often than the ones who know they actually have plenty of money.
I would agree with that.
The ones that come in here that just have no idea if they can retire or not, I think for the most part, after they go through our process, they go away relieved. Most people do.
Yes.
Rarely do we see somebody who is completely not ready to retire, financially being,
I would say that's 1 out of 25 people, maybe.
Yeah. For the most part, in this area of the world, most people have done a pretty decent job of preparing themselves for retirement. It's that mindset of, when you get closer to that day of retirement, you get a little queasy feeling in your stomach, and your mind goes, "Oh, can I do this?" You know, I'm afraid. I've worked all my life. I've worked 30, 40 years. Now I'm staring at next year in 6 months.
It's a milestone event.
No more paycheck.
It's a milestone event. Like you said, you've worked your whole life for that. You really can't get it wrong. I mean, you've got to make sure that, pardon me for using that old adage, your ducks are in a row.
Yeah.
And it's not something that people are very well versed at. They're good at their job. Mm-hmm. They're good at maybe raising their kids and doing some other things, but financial planning is not what they do. So they really don't have a good a good reference point on whether or not they are ready to retire.
Yeah.
And so there's some things that they have to consider. And so we're going to give you, if that's what you think you are, out of the three, I have no idea if I can retire, or the other one is, I think I have enough money to retire. We're going to talk about that in the second segment. And the third one is, I know I have enough money to retire. If you relate to that first one the most, I have no idea if I can retire, then here are the things that Doug and I think that you should be asking yourself as a next step. What do you want your retirement to look like? And that is a question that when we first sit down with somebody, we ask them to paint a picture. We don't jump right into the numbers. We want to know their dates of birth and how much longer they think they have to work, that kind of thing. But we ask them to paint a picture of what a day or a week or a month in retirement looks like for them, so we can have an understanding of what's in their mind. So I want you to ask yourself that. What does retirement look like for you? Paint it in a picture. Put it down in words. What does a day look like? What does a week look like? What does a month look like? There's a lot of common answers out there. Oh, I don't have any big goals, or I just want to be able to relax and sit by my fireplace, mow my lawn, tend my garden, play some golf, hang out with friends. All right, very typical, average stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, some people have more elaborate things. Well, got to see Machu Picchu. We want to go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, whatever.
Somebody just yesterday asked me about the Galapagos. They're going to call you because you went on that trip a couple years ago.
That was last year.
And they want to go to the Galapagos. That's their bucket list.
Okay, yeah, it was. Well, it was on my wife's too, and she didn't get to go with me. So, so that's the first question you should ask yourself. What does retirement lifestyle look like for you? Here's the second question. How much income are you going to need to make that picture come true? Mm-hmm. That's a tricky one for people, because most of us are pretty familiar with how much income we have coming in when we're working. You know what you're getting in your paycheck. You know what your annual salary is. Okay. You also know what kind of assets you already have. You have a pretty good idea of what you've got sitting in the bank and how much is in your 401k and how much is in your Roth account. What people often don't know, and this is willful blindfulness, is how much they are spending. And when they think about in retirement, how much is that month in retirement going to cost you, the average typical month? People don't know that. So that's the next thing that you have to start figuring out. Not just what does retirement look like for you, how much is it going to cost you to maintain that retirement picture month in, month out?
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. So I know that can be painful. We help you do that here at the Wealth Guardians. If you sit down, you call us up and say, hey, Brice, Garrett, Doug, want to meet with you guys. I want to go through that planning process with you. As we've said many times here on the show, there is no cost or obligation to do that. The one thing that we oftentimes hand out as homework is a worksheet to help you figure out what your income budget is going to look like. How much money do you need to spend on a month based on whatever your retirement looks like? If you've got a lot of travel, if you've got a mortgage, if you've got a wedding for a daughter that you're going to be paying for at some point, are you contributing to grandkids 529s? We're going to help you figure out what kind of expenses you're going to need in retirement. So that's the second thing that you have to look at. And Doug, the third one here is, what income streams do you have in place already? Mm-hmm. So there's generally three legs to that retirement stool, as the adage goes. You've got Social Security, you've got your investments, 401k, and then some of us are fortunate enough to have a pension on top of that. That's your three legs of your stool. That's generally where your three sources of income are going to come from. Some people are landlords as well. And so even though they retire, they still got a couple properties out there that they're getting some income from. That could be a fourth leg to your stool.
And since you're on the topic of income, one of the things I learned on the business portion of the trip is this. Annuities can play a big portion of somebody's retirement. And if you're listening to the show today and you have an annuity in your plans, if that annuity is 5 years old or older, because interest rates have gone up so much in the last year and a half, you may be able to improve your position tremendously. So give us a call and let us help you figure out if you can improve your annuities position. 336-391-3409.
336-391-3409. If you want to not just learn about that, but you want to learn about what your overall financial picture looks like and go through that meeting process with Doug, Garrett, and myself. As we've said many times, there is no cost or obligation to do that, but you do have to reach out and give us a call. 336-391-3409. We're located in Clemens, just south of Winston-Salem in the old Clemens Library. All right. Well, Doug, we got to get to, in the second segment, we got to get to these other ones. I think I have enough money to retire, and I know I have enough money to retire. But before that, we've got to get to the trivia question, which I know that you know, Doug.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, here we go. On May 16th, 1960, American physicist Theodore Maiman fires the first this. So I can't say what this is. He fires the first this. By 1967, his invention was patented. Today, we can find some variation of his invention in most U.S. homes. We even have one here in the office, as a matter of fact. We might even have more than one in the office. What did Theodore fire on May 16th, 1960? All right. All right. Well, if you're all pondering that out there, no cheating, no going to Google during the break. Okay, well, stick around for the answer to that trivia question on the other side of this short break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Doug Ray. The show is The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. News Talk 94.5 WPTI. You're listening to The Wealth Guardians show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne along with Doug Ray, and in this second segment, we're talking about retirement planning next steps, continuing that from the first segment that we had here. Now, before we get to our trivia question, I've got two questions for you, and I ask these same two questions every week, so I hope you got a good answer ready for them this time. Are you looking forward to your retirement? Okay, that should be an easy one, right? Do you want to make sure that you're making the best financial decisions for your retirement? I would certainly hope so. So if you answered yes to those two questions, then Doug and I and Garrett have great news for you. We here at the Wealth Guardians offer a no cost, no obligation, second opinion / review of your retirement plan. This is going to include a deep analysis of your assets, your investment portfolio, your insurance policies, your income needs, your risk tolerance, your risk exposure, your tax mitigation strategies, legacy goals, and even the fees that you're currently paying. It's not a complex process, and our goal is really quite simple. We want to help you lower your fees, align your risk, and improve your overall retirement picture so you can indeed retire the job and keep the paycheck. But the ball is in your court. You have to give us a call, so I'm going to give you our phone number. Write it down. 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. I'm going to give you the phone number again later, so keep that pen by you if you missed it. Give us a call or visit us at thewealthguardians.com to set up your financial plan review with Doug, Garrett, and myself today. As I like to say, the markets aren't going to wait for you. Okay, now let's go ahead and get to that trivia question. Doug?
I'm here.
On May 16th, 1960, American physicist Theodore Maiman fires the first of these. By 1967, his invention is patented. Today, we can find some variation of his invention in most U.S. homes. We have one or maybe even more than one in the office, as a matter of fact. What did Theodore fire on May 16th, 1960?
Well, May 16th is very close to my anniversary of May 17th, but I was married in 1980, not 1960. But that has nothing to do with your question.
It doesn't. You're stalling.
Yeah, because I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm going to guess a fire extinguisher.
Oh, that's a good guess, but
yeah.
No. So I'll give you a little bit of a clue. What we call this is an acronym.
Okay.
No?
Uh-uh.
Okay. It was a laser.
Oh, well, I'd have never guessed that.
You would have never guessed that?
No.
We have one. Most houses have a laser in them of some sorts. People play with their cats with them.
I don't have a cat.
Okay. Well, we need to fix that too.
No, we don't.
We use ours here at the office as a pointer for when we're doing the seminars.
Sure,
so, all right. Do you know what the acronym laser stands for?
No.
Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation.
Wonderful.
Okay, so Doug didn't know that. And for further little information and info on lasers here, everything that you didn't want to know, there are 4 main classes of them: Class 2, Class 3R, 3B, and 4. The first 2, Class 2 and Class 3R, are relatively safe for exposure. The last 2, Class 3B and 4, are hazardous, particularly for the eyes. So we don't probably have those kind of lasers in the house, but we do oftentimes have that. So that was thanks to Theodore Maiman and his 1960 invention that was patented in 1967, the laser, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Thought you would have gotten that one, Doug.
No way.
Okay.
I don't know where you get these questions. I do want to mention before we get into the rest of our topic.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Multi-year guarantee annuities is a great way to lock in some high interest rates right now. They come in maturities of 1 year out to 10 years. And right now you can get rates anywhere from 4.4 to 5.8%. Why is that important? It's important because most of these rates are higher than what you can get in a CD.
Right.
It's also important because I think we're getting very close to the peak in interest rates. The next cycle of interest rates are going to be down.
Okay.
So now is your chance to lock in with some monies that you might have sitting around that you want to keep nice and safe, but touchable in these rates.
When you say touchable, go into just a little bit more detail on that.
So you put your money in these. It's just like a CD. In fact, it's the insurance industry's equivalent to a CD. Okay, multi-year guarantee annuity.
Okay.
So you put your money in for, say, and I think the sweet spot would be 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
You can get about 5 to 5.4% every single year there. Most of these allow you to take 10% a year out without a penalty. If you go over that, then there's a penalty. But give us a call at 336-391-3409 if you want to discuss this in more detail.
In general, multi-year guaranteed annuities, unlike their cousin variable annuities, do not have fees associated.
They do not have fees. They're safe. They're guaranteed.
And one of the, as you said, one of the benefits of them over a CD is not just the rates, but a CD is generally 100% illiquid. You
Right.
can't touch any of it without getting a fee, whereas a multi-year guaranteed annuity, you can take a certain percentage out every year and not be susceptible to any of those fees. Somebody might say, well, Doug, I can get a 1-year CD right now at 4%. Why would I go into a 5 or 6 year MIGA for that same rate?
Because in a year from now, that 1-year CD may be paying 2
Right.
or 1.
So that's reinvestment risk that you're taking
Exactly.
there with a shorter term. So, all right. Thank you very much for that, Doug. Now, as we were doing in the first segment, we were talking about retirement planning next steps. There are 3 main mindsets that people might have going into retirement. They have no idea if they can retire. They think they have enough money to retire, and they know they have enough money to retire. We see all 3 of those come into the office. In the first segment, we talked about people who are of that first one. I have no idea if I can retire. If that was their mindset, we were giving them a little bit of advice about next things for them to consider or start calculating. So now we're going to start talking about that second mindset. I think I have enough money to retire. So, Doug, we see that one commonly as well.
Mm-hmm. I think the first 2 we see more often than the third one.
Definitely.
But this one, they think they have, but they don't really know for sure. And that's why they're coming to us, to find out if they actually can retire next month, next year, whenever they want to, that time comes up for them.
Exactly. So here is what our advice would be. If that's what you fall into, here's the next questions that you need to start asking yourself. Who or what makes you think that you're ready? Is that just a hunch, or is that based on something more substantial? And is that feeling, is that decision to retire, is that your decision? Is that a decision that you're making with your spouse? Is it a decision that might be made for you by somebody else, like a boss? So that's the things that you need to start figuring out there. The next one is, where is your first paycheck going to come from once you retire? In other words, where are you drawing your income to pay the bills? Obviously, we've got Social Security. Most of us have that. What other forms of income? Let's start calculating that. Let's start seeing, does this one have a cost of living adjustment on it like Social Security does? Maybe you've got a pension from a private company. There's a couple of large companies here in the Triad area that still offer pensions, but they don't have cost of living adjustments attached to them. So you got to figure out how much buying power are you losing with that income year after year if it doesn't have any cost of living adjustment to it. So that's the second one. Where is your income coming from?
And let me add this. Most people have no concept of how to take that 401k they've been building for years and years and years and turn it into a paycheck so they can retire.
That's right.
That's what we do every day.
A lump sum is basically you're trying, in layman's terms, you're trying to convert that Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
I know how warm it is, but what does that mean as far as how it's good for me or what it does for me? So yeah, I see my lump sum here of X amount of dollars, $500,000, $1 million in my 401k. But what does that mean as far as what kind of income it can produce for me? So we'll help you figure that out. What rate of return do you need to get on your investments to make all this work? Now, we ask that question. What to you is a reasonable rate of return? And we get some fun answers with that one. Some people say just something that keeps up or maybe outpaces inflation. We get that answer. Some people will say, 5 or 6% is good enough for me. Okay, that's reasonable. Some people might say, I expect to get, I think 10% or 12% is a reasonable rate of return.
Yeah.
So we can go into more details of that when you sit down with us. But that's the next question you need to be asking yourself. What rate of return do you need to get on your investments to make all this work? And is that rate of return reasonable? The next question we got to ask ourselves, Doug, is do you have an emergency fund and enough money for big expenses that are inevitably going to show up?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody needs an emergency fund.
Right.
Rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses.
That's right.
That ought to be right there, parked in the bank, close to you, so you can get it.
That's right. Some people like more than 6 months, and which is okay, but keep in mind the more that you've got in that bank, particularly in high inflation periods like this, you're losing buying power in that account every day. So let's not overdo it in there. Okay, so that covers the next questions that somebody who's in that category, I think I have enough money to retire. And real quickly, we got to get to this last one. I know I have enough money to retire. This is probably the one that we don't see as much.
And that's the easy one. They just need to structure their assets in such a manner that it helps them meet their daily goals in terms of living expenses and then the long-term goals of travel and whatnot. But if they've got plenty of money, they know they have, that is a very easy problem for us to solve. Sometimes we find, and this is rare, somebody comes in and says, I know I've got enough money to live on, but then we do the math and do the work and find out, no, you don't.
Doesn't happen that often.
Doesn't happen that often.
But it does happen. And as you have said, wouldn't you rather know that now than later?
Right.
Right. Okay, so let's figure that out. So here are the questions that somebody who's of that last category, I know I have enough money to retire. Okay, here's the questions you got to ask yourself. How is your income plan going to change if tax rates go up in the future? Okay. Second one, how will you give yourself raises in retirement to keep up with inflation?
Good one.
Okay. Does your income plan allow for you to truly spend with confidence and enjoy life without worrying about running out of money? You don't want to go through retirement worrying.
No.
Right? Okay. What happens if you need long-term care? Huge one.
Bingo.
Huge one. If anything's going to blow up a retirement plan, it is not a little bit higher inflation rate, is not a little bit less of a return on your investments. It's unplanned for long-term care expenses.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's going to cover it for that third one there. So we went over, I have no idea if I can retire. I think I have enough money to retire. And I know I have enough money to retire. That is the three things that we want to go over in this segment. Doug, is there anything else that you want to add before we got to sign off here?
I think we're good with this one.
Very good. Well, welcome back again from your business trip. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have this week. We hope the rest of your weekend is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne along with Doug Ray. The show is the Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI.